Jam Vishnupad Paramamsa Parvajikacharya Astu Tarasata Shishimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jam Vishnupad Paramamsa Parvajikacharya Astu Tarasata Shishimad. Shringa Guru Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Anantikoti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Premsako Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath, Shyamakund, Radhakund, Gita Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannathpuri Dham Ki Jai, New Dwarka Dham Ki Jai, the Divine Lordship Shri Shri Rukmini Dwarkadish Ki Jai, the Divine Lordship Shri Shri Jagannath Baldev Shrimati Subhadra Ki Jai, the Divine Lordship Shri Shri Gornitai Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Jagga Ki Jai, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hare Hare Bol. All glories to the Sema devotees Hare Krishna, all glories to the Sema devotees Hare Krishna, all glories to the Sema devotees Hare Krishna, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. For reading from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is chapter 2, and I'm continuing where they left off. This chapter is entitled Prayers by the Demigods for Lord Krishna in the Womb. Can you see that okay? Dear Lord, when you appear in your different incarnations, you take different names and forms according to different situations. Lord Krishna is your name because you are all attractive. You are called Shama Sundar because of your transcendental beauty. Shama means blackish. Yet it is said that you are more beautiful than 10,000s of cupids. Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya. Although you appear in a color which is compared to the blackish cloud, because you are the transcendental absolute, your beauty is many, many times more attractive than the delicate body of Cupid. Sometimes you are called Giridhari because you lifted the hill known as Govardhan. You are sometimes called Nandanandana or Vasudev or Devaki Nandana because you appear as the son of Maharaj Nanda or Vasudeva or Devaki. Impersonalists think that your many names or forms are given according to a particular type of work and quality because they accept you from the position of a material observer. So Prabhupada quotes Brahma Samhita in this section. I like to chant that verse. That's the 30th verse. Venam kranantam aravinda dalaya taksham Barharvatam samasitam buddha sundarangam Kandarpa koti kamaniya visesha sobam Govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock's feather, with a figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. So Krishna's form, it's not a fanciful creation of imagination, formed after visualizing beautiful things in nature. But Brahma saw in his ecstatic trance this of pure devotion. He saw this, and so he's describing it. So as described, the beauty and loveliness of Krishna is far more enchanting than that of Cupid, multiplied 1,000,000-fold. Our dear Lord, the way of understanding is not to study your absolute nature, form and activities by mental speculation. One must engage himself in devotional service. Then one can understand your absolute nature and your transcendental form, name, and qualities. Actually, only a person who has a little taste for service of your lotus feet can understand your transcendental nature or form and qualities. Others may go on speculating for millions of years, but it is not possible for them to understand even a single part of your actual position. In other words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, cannot be understood by the non-devotees because there is a curtain of Yoga Maya, which covers Krishna's actual features. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya, the Lord says, I am not exposed to anyone and everyone. When Krishna came, he was actually present on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and everyone saw him, but not everyone could understand that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Still, everyone who died in his presence attained complete liberation from material bondage and was transferred to the spiritual world. So Prabhupada quotes this verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Naham prakasa sarvasya yogamaya samavrita mudho yam napi janati loko mam ajam avayam. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I am covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. So Bhagavad Gita says that except for his pure devotees, everybody else considers him to be like themselves. So he only manifests himself to his devotees for their pleasure and for his pleasure also. But to others and unintelligent non-devotees, he's covered by his internal potency. And there's a nice verse Prabhupada quotes from the first canto, the prayers by Kunti Dev. And she says, it is said that the Lord is covered by the curtain of Yogamaya, and thus ordinary people cannot understand him. And then he quotes the Ishopanishad mantra, which is really nice. O my Lord, you are the maintainer of the entire universe, and devotional service to you is the highest religious principle. Therefore I pray to you, pray that you will also maintain me. Your transcendental form is covered by the Yogamaya. The Brahmajyotir is the covering of the internal potency. May you kindly remove this glowing effulgence that impedes my seeing your Sat Chidananda Vigraha, your eternal form of bliss and knowledge. And then there's one more prayer he quotes from the 10th canto. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, O Supersoul, O Master of all mystery, who can calculate your potency and pastimes in this world? You are always expanding your internal potency, and therefore no one can understand you. Learned scientists and learned scholars can examine the atomic constitution of the material world, or even the planets, but still they're unable to calculate your energy and potency, although you are present before them. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is not only unborn, but is also described as avyaya, his inexhaustible. So his form, his bliss, everything, his knowledge, his energies are all inexhaustible. And then there's another verse that's similar. It's related. This is from 9:11. Avajananti mam mudha manushim tanu mashritam parambhavam ajananto mam bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in my human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as a supreme Lord of all that be. So material bodies can't perform the activities that Krishna performs. So because his body is eternal, it's full of bliss, it's full of knowledge. So common men, what they do is they deride him because they consider him to be a man also. But Krishna, he comes, is described as being manushim. He acts like a man. He's like playing like a man. You know, he's like a friend of Arjuna, a politician in the battle of Kurukshetra. In so many ways, he's acting like an ordinary man. But his body is Satchidananda Vigraha. It's full of knowledge, bliss, eternality. So this is Krishna. So there's an interesting point here for this verse. Srila Prabhupada talks about how there's three kinds of devotees, and the lowest is a neophyte. He says the neophyte devotee gives more attention to the deity in the temple than to other devotees. So Vishnavath Chakravarti Thakur warns that this sort of mentality should be corrected. A devotee should see that because Krishna is present in everyone's heart as Paramatma, every body is the embodiment or the temple of the Supreme Lord. So as one offers respect to the temple of the Lord, he should similarly properly respect each and every body in which the Paramatma dwells. Everyone should therefore be given proper respect and should not be neglected. So as Prabhupada mentioned also in the reading, how when Krishna came, he was present in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and everybody saw him. But a lot of people couldn't really understand who he was, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but still, because they were died in his presence, they attained liberation from material bondage, and they were transferred to the spiritual world. And then we'll continue. O Lord, the impersonalists or non-devotees cannot understand your name, that your name is identical with your form. Since the Lord is absolute, there is no difference between his name and his actual form. In the mature world, there is a difference between form and name. The mango fruit is different from the name of the mango. I just mentioned mango and it appeared, but I can't taste it. One cannot taste the mango fruit simply by chanting, mango, mango, mango. But the devotee who knows that there is no difference between the name and the form of the Lord chants Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and realizes that he is always in Krishna's company. For persons who are not very advanced in absolute knowledge of the Supreme Lord, Krishna exhibits his transcendental pastimes. Such persons can simply think of the pastimes of the Lord and get full benefit. Since there is no difference between the transcendental name and form of the Lord, there is no difference between the transcendental pastimes and the form of the Lord. For those who are less intelligent, like women, laborers, or the mercantile class, the great sage Vyasadeva wrote the Mahabharata. In the Mahabharata, Krishna is present in his different activities. The Mahabharata is history, and simply by studying, hearing, and memorizing the transcendental activities of Krishna, the less intelligent can also gradually rise to the standard of pure devotees. The pure devotees who are always absorbed in the thought of the transcendental lotus feet of Krishna and who are always engaged in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness are never to be considered to be in the material world. Srila Rupa Goswami has explained that those who are always engaged in Krishna consciousness with body, mind, and activities are to be considered liberated even within this body. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Those who are engaged in the devotional service of the Lord have already transcended the material position. Krishna appears in order to give a chance to both the devotees and the non-devotees for realization of the ultimate goal of life. The devotees get the direct chance to see him and worship him. Those who are not on that platform get the chance to become acquainted with his activities and thus become elevated to the same position. Our dear Lord, O Supreme Controller, when you appear on earth, all the demons like Kamsa and Jarasundha will be vanquished, and all good fortune will be ushered into the world. When you walk on the globe, Your lotus feet will impress on the ground the marks of your souls, such as the flag, the trident, and the thunderbolt. Thus you will grace both the earth and us on the heavenly planets who see those marks. So these are demigods, they're offering these prayers. So they're foreseeing what Krishna is going to be doing in his different pastimes. And here, there's an interesting verse, there's a Bhagavad Gita verse that Prabhupada refers to, which is 728. Ye samtvantakatam papam janam punya karmanam te dvandva mohan nirmukta bhajante mam drita vrataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. So those who are eligible for elevation are mentioned in this verse, but those who are sinful, atheistic, foolish, deceitful, it's very difficult to transcend this duality of desire and hate. But if they practice the regulated principles, then they can be freed from their sinful reactions and gradually rise through these steps to know the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then they can meditate in trance on Krishna. So this is nicely described. So as this verse is explaining, that a person who has completely eradicated the reactions of all his sinful activities and is fully engaged in pious activities, being freed from the duality of this material world, becomes engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this devotional service is the only way to get free from all the reactions. And then there's a nice quote from the Padma Purana that confirms that. For those who are engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all sinful reactions, whether fructified in the stalk or in the form of a seed, gradually vanish. Therefore, the purifying potency of devotional service is very strong, and it is called Pavitram Uttamam, the purest. So this is described there. So as mentioned, the demigods are foreseeing how Kamsa is going to be, this tyrant is going to be killed. Very nice painting by Parikshit. And also they mentioned how you're going to leave your marks on this earth and we'll be able to see them. So even the other devotees, they become overwhelmed with ecstasy just to see the footprints of Krishna, like a Kura. You see, so devotees who are pure, they're always absorbed in the thought of Krishna's transcendental lotus feet, and they engage in his devotional service. So this is so nicely described and visualized here. And also Jarasandha was mentioned, where Krishna didn't kill him directly, but through Bhima, he actually imparted his special power to Bhima to kill this demon, because Krishna knew his secret of his birth, and which he was born in two halves, and this demoness Jara, she joined them. So Krishna, I don't know if you could see there, he had like a twig that had two legs and he ripped it apart like that to give Bhima a hint, this is how you can kill him. So immediately Bhima understood, and he seized him and he stomped on one of his legs and ripped him up. It's described, he apart from the anus all the way up, she just ripped him in half. So continuing, our dear Lord, the demigods continued, you are unborn, therefore we do not find any reason for your appearance other than your pleasurable pastimes. Although the reason for the appearance of the Lord is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, he descends just to give protection to the devotees and vanquish the non-devotees. Actually, he descends for his pleasure, meeting with the devotees, not really to vanquish the non-devotees. The non-devotees can be vanquished simply by one kick of material nature. The actions and reactions of material nature, which is creation, maintenance, and annihilation, are being carried out automatically. But simply by taking shelter of your holy name, the devotees are fully protected, because your holy name and your personality are non-different. The protection of the devotees and the annihilation of the non-devotees are actually not the business of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When he descends, it is just for his transcendental pleasure. There cannot be any other reason for his appearance. Our dear Lord, you are appearing as the best of the Yadu dynasty, and we are offering our respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet. Before this appearance, you also appeared as the fish incarnation, the horse incarnation, as the tortoise incarnation, as the half-man, half-lion incarnation, as the boar incarnation, as the swan incarnation, as King Ramachandra, as Parshuram, and as many other incarnations. You appear just to protect the devotees, and we request you in your present appearance as the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself to give us similar protection all over the three worlds and remove all obstacles for the peaceful execution of our lives. So these are the main incarnations. But here they mentioned the swan incarnation. So here, we have to wait till we get to the 11th canto before we read about the Hamsa avatar, who here is enlightening Lord Brahma and the four Kumaras. So that's in the 11th canto, 13th chapter. And there it explains, Krishna is explaining to Uddhava how human beings, overwhelmed by sense gratification, become bound by the three modes of material nature. And then he described how he appeared in his form as Hamsa before Brahma and the four sages, headed by Sanaka. And he revealed to them confidential truths. So even though Lord Brahma himself had no material cause, because he's the cause of the creation of all living beings and is the greatest of the demigods, yet even Brahma is always suffering the agitation of the mind on account of the duties he has to perform. Therefore, when his sons questioned him, headed by Sanaka, they were actually born from his mind, and they asked him, what is the means for driving away desires for sense gratification? And Lord Brahma couldn't answer that, because he was himself, his mind, and he was meant, because of his creating the material world and everything, for some reason he couldn't answer that. So in order to get some insight, he began to meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he appeared to him in this form of a swan. And he gave him many confidential instructions, to overcome this material nature. And this is one of the instructions that he gave. This is from that chapter, verse 34, which is very nice. It says, one should see that the material world is a distinct illusion appearing in the mind, because material objects have an extremely flickering existence and are here today and gone tomorrow. They can be compared to the streaking red line created by the whirling a fire stick. The spirit soul by nature exists in the single state of pure consciousness. However, in this world, he appears in many different forms and stages of existence. The modes of nature divide the soul's consciousness into normal wakefulness, dreaming, and dreamless sleep. All such varieties of perception, however, are actually Maya and exist only like a dream. So we should see how our original consciousness is one, and how we should understand how everything here is flickering. It's here today and gone tomorrow. So we have to detach ourselves from this illusory variety of Maya. So this is the last part of the chapter. Dear Mother Devaki, within your womb is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appearing along with all his plenary extensions. He is the original personality of Godhead, appearing for our welfare. Therefore, you should not be afraid of your brother, the king of Bhoja. Your son, Lord Krishna, who is the original personality of Godhead, will appear for the protection of the pious Yadu dynasty. The Lord is appearing not alone, but accompanied by his immediate plenary portion, Baladev. Devaki was very much afraid of her brother Kamsa, because he had already killed so many of her children. So she was very anxious about Krishna. In the Vishnu Purana, It is stated that in order to pacify Devaki, all the demigods, along with their wives, used to visit her to encourage her not to be afraid that her son would be killed by Kamsa. Krishna, who was within her womb, was to appear not only to diminish the burden of the world, but specifically to protect the interests of the Yadu dynasty, and certainly to protect Devaki and Vasudeva. It is understood that Krishna had been transferred from the mind of Vasudeva to the mind of Devaki, and from there to her womb. Thus, all the demigods worshipped Devaki, the mother of Krishna. After thus worshipping the transcendental form of the Lord, all the demigods, with Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva placed in front, departed for their heavenly abodes. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the second chapter of Krishna, Prayers by the Demigods for Lord Krishna in the womb. Sorry. So that was a quick visual. So I guess we have time for comments, questions, and realizations. Archita?
Hare Krishna, thank you for a very nice presentation along with such nice visuals. It's amazing how many paintings Prabhupada got his disciples to produce. To
Yeah, that's why I try to share them so people can
to illustrate
check them
all
out.
these points. One very important thing though, and generally we're not so, heavy about pronunciation, but this name is going to come up over and over again. Interestingly, Ekaraja's youngest daughter, what is her name?
Devaki?
Ekaraja's youngest daughter, what is her name?
Devaki?
Devaki, right. So because she just started school, her mom said, people are going to mispronounce your name. So tell them, it's just like if you give your friend Dave a key. It's not Devaki, it's Devaki.
Oh yeah, I think I might have mispronounced it a couple of times. Sorry.
And so many. So it's
Yeah.
Devaki, not Devaki.
Devaki.
Please, yeah, it just sounds weird when you say Devaki.
Yeah.
There's two words. D-E-V-A, which is Deva, and K long I, which is key, like when we say Ki Jai. So when you put them together, you get Devaki, not Devaki. Okay? Horrible.
Yeah, it's easy to say Devaki. Let's see, we have some more hands. Mother Kriya Shakti.
Yeah, thanks again for all the wonderful pictures that went along with the narrative. Srila Prabhupada says that
Thank
they
you.
are windows to the spiritual world.
I'm sorry?
Windows to the
Oh, yeah,
spiritual
windows.
world. One of the first pictures that you showed with the speculators underneath the form of Krishna, he was standing in the pasture. That was done by Dharmada, and she told me that the deity Giridhari, Radha Giridhari in San Diego, he posed for that picture.
Oh, this one? Oh, okay. Nice. That's good to know. They're very beautiful deities there. Any other comments, questions, realizations?
Prabhu,
Yes, Sachinoi.
when you were mentioning about Krishna and the battle of Kurukshetra and the battlefield,
Yes.
even those persons who didn't even know about Krishna, they didn't know who he was, just because they died in his presence, they get liberated because he's absolute. So the question will be, similarly, a lot of devotees have family members who don't believe in Krishna, or they don't even know who he is, but the devotees bring a picture of Krishna, Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Will they have the same, with the statement that even those who were there, Krishna was, they get
Well, if they
liberated?
could see the picture, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like they have pictures of
They see the
Prabhupada, the
picture,
pure devotees,
they show
the sound. It's all transcendental. It's absolute. It just reminds me, there's, remember Brigupati? That old rat that was walking across the street. You could tell he was about to leave his body. And then he went over to the BBT. And you know where I put Tulsi out? He just left his body right under Tulsi there. A very fortunate rat. And there's like, sometimes the Tulsi leaves, they fall to that area too. So, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Yes, Kriya Shakti. Yeah.
Right here in New Dwarka. It was at a Rath Yatra. Yeah. I have a friend who, devotee, and her dad was passing away, and they were trying to decide if they should invite her to come to see her dad. And he said, oh no. He said, if she comes here, we're only going to hear about Krishna. It's going to be Krishna this, Krishna that, Krishna here, Krishna everywhere. We're never going to mimic.
Yeah.
He's going on and on about Krishna, Krishna.
You know, Krishna didn't he make like a school teaching grammar with Krishna? Everything's Krishna's name. It's amazing. But you reminded me, there's at Giriraj Swami's ashram, you know, Kunti has a dog named Radhe. And you know what the dog does mostly now? It just circumambulate Tulsi. Because it stays in the garage and they have Tulsi when they bring him in. And the devotees, they chant Hare Krishna around Tulsi. And the dog just follows him. And every day he just does it on his own. He circumambulates Tulsi. It's just really amazing. Yes, Prabhupada.
Yeah, I have a good story on this point. I was in Sydney, Australia for 11 years, and we were doing Sankirtan on one of the main streets was George Street, and our spot was in front of a Coles, or it's like the equivalent of Woolworths. You know, the store.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had competition. We used to go down there and we used to, set up in front of the store because it was a blind, window, so people in the stores couldn't see us, wouldn't come out and chase us away. But there was a fellow there in a wheelchair. He was a paraplegic or quadriplegic, I'm not sure. He was in a wheelchair, and he had like a cup with some pencils in it, and he would, get donations from people. He'd give him a pencil or something.
Yeah.
So when we came, we were competition for him, and he didn't like it, and he was very vocal. He used to go, Hare Krishna's ripping them off. Wake up, Sydney. And, as soon as we came down there, he'd start chanting that, and he would just chant it continuously, and we have to go away because, so much so because the people would be alerted like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, this went on for years. And then we stopped going there. And then many years later, maybe like 8 years later, I went back there, and he was still there. He was there. And he saw me, and I started distributing, and he went, Hare Krishna, saving the world. Wake up, Sydney. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe my ears.
Consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I went up to him and say, hey, his name was Barry. We used to call him Crazy Barry, but he wasn't crazy. But anyway, I said, hey, Barry, did I hear you right? And he just kind of looked down very sheepishly. It's like something happened,
Wow.
From all that chanting. And he used to chant really loud and clear, Hare Krishna, ripping them off. And it went from Hare Krishna ripping them off to Hare Krishna saving the world. Wake up, Sydney. Anyway.
That's one of the things the Hamsa incarnation was telling Lord Brahma, is that the association of devotees is very important. It really helps us get out of here. Yes, Prabhu.
See, there's a nice story also of a devotee who practiced Krishna consciousness for few years, maybe 15 or 20 years, but at one time he had troubles and he started breaking all the principles, all of them. And one day he was in a car and he had a horrible accident, and he was telling me himself this story. And in that accident he hit his head really hard, and he started seeing like a film, different things of his life, what he was going through, and he was just going through this and this and that. But at one point, he said, he saw Krishna and Krishna's devotees, and then his mind just stopped right there. He didn't want to see anything else. So Krishna manifested himself.
Yeah.
He was so kind to him.
Yeah. I was just reading, I don't know if it was a purport, Prabhupada was saying that even though, it's a verse actually, even though the devotees may fall down, still they do not give up their affection for Krishna. And Krishna appreciates that. And like you're saying, he was protected. They say when you die, your whole life flashes before you. And then all the pious, if there's some pious things in there, that's going to maybe stop it. You could focus on that. Yeah. Okay, any other comments, realizations? Okay, thank you for your kind attention. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. Glories to Srila Prabhupada.